Welcome to your second week in August. This is War Hero to Superhero, helping military veterans and first responders transform their lives from the bedroom to the boardroom. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Faust. We are now, cool, exciting announcement. We are now streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and now we're streaming on the Easy Way wall, and we're also now streaming on Roku through the Easy Way app. So now you can catch us in 6 different locations live 3 days a week. So whatever platform that you go over and decide, we got you, and we're growing. And we want to thank the Easy Way family and the Easy Way wall. If you're wanting to take your podcast and digital TV experience to the next level, connect with the Easy Way Broadcasting or the Easy Way Fam or the Easy Way Wall. There is many different services depending if you're small or huge, they will go over and serve you. So Think and Grow Rich, for example, is one of our partners that go over and grow, and also the Billionaire Elite Club. All right, let's jump in. This week is the living room, if you haven't recognized it already. And this season is supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year, especially as parents, because we're like, summer vacation's almost over and we're supposed to be going back to school. That hashtag was famous last year when every time putting back to school. But guess what happened? Nope, not really. So this week's theme is about transformation in the living room, and what we're going to be talking about today is something a little different because most cities and states are going to a virtual school for the year or a hybrid, or you're constantly going over and pivoting. You might start out virtual and then go hybrid, and then something happens with COVID and goes over and breaks out again, and then it goes back to hybrid or goes totally back to virtual. And you're thinking to yourself, what are you going to do? I thought about this. I've been thinking about this for several months, and I decided not to allow COVID and this situation to go over and dictate. So we came with some strategies for our family, and we want to share those with you so you can benchmark or get inspired. Because especially as active duty military, reservists, guardsmen, veterans, and whatnot, we're always planning for contingencies, but there's just some things that we never even thought of. Our base got ransacked when we first got started, every base, in the sense of how to go over and deal with COVID. It took them days upon weeks. Group commanders and wing commanders go figure that out. But now this is not affecting directly your ops at work because you have it figured out, but now it's affecting again there. So we wanted to give you some virtual school tactics to go over and thrive. So let's go jump into our virtual school tactics to have you thrive. And this is always a conversation. If you've thought of any tactics to deal with the virtual school hybrid for your kids, I'd love to go over and hear it. Put it in the comments. And if you're watching, thank you for going over and watching. Virtual school tactic number 1. First thing is you decide. The biggest thing that we put into sometimes regards is that local city and state go over and does something, and we just get and we just rant and everything else, and then we just go with it. The power of it is that most states, you decide on what you're going to go over and do. You have the opportunity to go over and do. You don't have to go over and accept what they go over and do because there's still multiple options. Some of the options we might go into later that we're going to talk about is homeschooling, co-ops, going over and looking at funding that the state has that you can go over and access, and you do the training yourself. The first tactic that we really need to understand with this is that we can't keep allowing COVID to go over and decide, allowing the people to go over and decide. We have more freedom than we think we go over and have, and we need to go over and leverage that freedom. So don't get locked in the can'ts where there is can't. Most cities go over and also allow you not to stay within that district. You might find a district that is going in residence that maybe works for you, and you might have to do a little more commute, but that might give you the freedom. You might find out that you go over and decide with a bunch of families, you do a homeschool co-op, and then you divide the group up, like the small kids and whatnot. Or maybe you even start your own school yourself, because technically In the state of Delaware, once you sign up for a homeschool, you can actually school people. So it is a lot of work to go over, but just remember the biggest factor is you can go over and decide. So that's virtual school tactic number one. Going into tactic number two, you can go over and fight the school. And a lot of people are doing that virtually. We've been seeing that in the Dover groups and the Caesar Rodney district. We're seeing that across the nation that moms, especially because moms are usually more active than dads in this particular group, that you can go over and fight the school. But don't bank on them moving that much. They might pivot a thing or two, but unless you're a big enough group that makes a big enough impact for that superintendent or that city council or the overall district or going over in the governor, that COVID's gonna go higher than that, and they're making those decisions based on that. So fight for the things that you know that you can go and fight for, but don't bank on it moving much. That strategy is going to give you a lot less stress because if we're already going to virtual and there's so many things that we're going to have to go over and pivot, fight for the things that you know are going to be fruitful individually, corporately, group wise, and everything else. And then the rest, I'd bank on maybe 5 to 15% to go over and change. I have the same thing for my day job. My day job, they go over in this things that are dumb with it. If you've been in the military for a minute, you've been a veteran, you've been a first responder, you're going to find some things that are really dumb. And some things you get the opportunity to take that chaos and bring order to, but sometimes it doesn't change. It's a corporate thing, or it's going to take too long, or it's an IT infrastructure thing, or it's a technical order, or if it's something of a general. When it gets into this virtual school stuff, this is approved at the superintendent, district, city, or state level. So fight where you can, but if you expect a lot of things to change, you're going to stress yourself out, and you won't do good in this virtual school hybrid world that it's going towards. Now let's get into an actual tactic that's more applicable, more in the mind, but actually there. One income supports and one defends. We talked about this on a couple podcasts we're on, and I wanted to expand on this, is that in this world, we're going to virtual and hybrid schools. Hopefully you can find a place to go and do that. But a lot of times, if you are a dual income family, a lot of times you take both incomes to support everything that you're doing, the things that you need, the things that you want, and the things that you desire. When you go over and do that, just like it did in 2008 in the bubble of the economy crash, usually when the economy crashed and those people lost their jobs, I remember a couple that I met specifically because there was millions of couples this happened to, but I knew a couple specifically. They were dual income. One was military. The other one was a spouse working. And what happened is that the economy bubble collapsed, and then her job went away, and he was still stable because he was active duty, and they were struggling for a while because they bit off more they can chew, because they said, when we put both these incomes together, this will support the rent, this will support the mortgage, this will support everything else. And it was supporting every single thing. So as we go to virtual school, maybe one of us have to come home. Maybe, and we'll talk about other options too, because it's not all not has to happen, but that one income goes over and supports the primary things. So you're going to have to get out your budget tool and going to go over and have to get a handy dandy pen or a digital app, or Every Dollar, which is through Dave Ramsey, or whatever you go and use, Crown Financial Ministries, Quicken, whatever you go over and use. You need to go figure out how much of your actual income can go over and support. If one income totally supports and the other one goes over and defends, then as these things come up, economic bubbles, school stuff, job goes away, and everything else, no matter if we stick to virtual school or not, you can go over and do that. And it's not simple, because if you've been living on a dual income for a long time, this is going to be hard for you. It took us a while too. In this particular regard, we were dual income. We would have been on track of making just $100,000 a year. But the thing is that in certain seasons, we had to go to like, okay, I almost died a couple times. I'm spending so much money on childcare. I'm spending so much money on diapers. I'm spending so much money on extra food, me eating out of the house, or my wife eating out of the house, and everything else. And you realize, if you do your math, and it depends on what your math skills are, you'll be using probably between 20 to sometimes 60, 70% or more of your income. If you're making less than $20 an hour and you're the second income or the first income, so let's say the first income is in the household is making 40, 45,000, the other person's maybe making 40,000. For that person to come out of the home and they have kids, they're forking out a good amount of cash. I was just talking to somebody today. They paid $310 a month for a private school, but fortunately the other parent goes over and splits the half, and then they have a blended family, and there's actually three incomes coming in. The money coming in for the child from the blended family, then the new mom and dad. But typically what happens is if mom and or dad now goes to work, that new parent, and they're making under $20 an hour, you're going to be spending that sort of money to go over and to do that. So our strategy for you guys is that maybe rethink the brand and say, hey, what income supports needs to go out of the house and what income needs to defend in that particular regard. Maybe that income needs to come home and go virtual or something. Going from there, virtual school tactic number 4 is talk to your leadership or boss. Give them a win-win situation, especially a lot of the people that are in our local area and at the bases. You could be mill to mill spouse or mill to mill in that particular regard that you're both military. There was like 2 active duty people going over saying, I can't just go over and leave work. But the thing is that you have leadership, you have bosses, you have commanders, you have superintendents that are going to be also affected too. So in that particular regard, talk to your leadership in that regard, especially for the 5 to 12-year-olds. 0 to 5, you have the CDCs or the Fleet Support Center or childcare through there. But when you get to the 5 to 12, we weren't prepared for that particular regard. So talk to your leadership. In some states, you still got time. So take that. If you're in Arizona, you're scrambling. So talk to your leadership immediately and try to do a win-win situation. Can you, like we did in COVID, can you go back home again? Could you go over and work nights? Could you work taskers in that particular thing? Could it be maybe there's something in the unit or in the wing or the squadron or the fleet or wherever service that you're in, or even in the GS world, the hospital or the agency that you can go over and do and breed more of a home life and then go do that. So maybe talk to your leadership so you can give them a win-win. For myself, if I had to do this by myself, I fortunately have MaxiFlex. So if you're a GS, go over and leverage and see if they can go over and do the MaxiFlex telework authorization. Normally it's certain positions, but with COVID specifically, you can go over and network and to go over and to do that. Virtual school tactic number 5 kind of goes the same thing with 4 in a sense is, can your job come home? So no matter if you're working on an active duty base or working with a veteran or government agency, or maybe you're a first responder in a sense of supporting them and you're not directly like a cop or a firefighter, you typically can't go over and do that. But can your job go over and come home? Certain days, maybe the standby, for the certain job, maybe it can be on call standby with the phone and going over and dealing, or maybe you can go over and bring that laptop with the headphone and the mic and go over and do the job. Can the job go over and come home to go over and to do to make it easier? As kids get older, yes, it's easier to go do the virtual things, but we're in the midst of it with you guys too. We have 2 10-year-olds, and then we have an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old. My wife was out of commission because of her health today. She had a bad day. Fortunately, they're old enough, but they kind of ran over her. Now, if I was actively home during the day and taking even a 5-minute break, I know there would have been a difference in the home. There was a difference right when I came in. I said X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, you need to clear this up. And then they went over and fixed that. Our kids naturally go over and go towards their natural tendencies until they take the values that we have and adopt those things. So maybe your job can come home and you can at least have a few minutes of more interaction with them to keep them on pace onto this virtual school hybrid system. Virtual school tactic number 6. This one's probably going to be the hardest one, but it is possible, is homeschool. Depending on your state, some schools are very lenient to go over and do homeschool, and some of them are really difficult. And there's a lot of virtual options for other schools to go over. The residential schools that are adopting this right now, they've never done this before. So they have different sets of rules. They're trying to stay within the rules with COVID. A lot of schools like K-12s and Connections Academy, or going over and doing a homeschool co-op and whatnot, like Delaware, for example, their rules are very lenient. You just are required to go over. In some states, they're not even required to go do testing. It's more of attendance than anything else. So you would send attendance records and whatnot and show a curriculum plan and whatnot. And there's a lot of companies as low as $25 to $65 a month. If you're interested in this option of homeschool, I can send you some free options, especially if you're in Delaware. So maybe homeschool is an option for you, which if you're in Arizona, which is our last state specifically on the homeschooling front, you can access with our next virtual school tactic, which is ESA. ESA, not in every state, is an education savings account. What that goes over and does is says that you're taking the rights of their education. You go over and get the rights of their education, and then you just have to build a plan for them to be educated. And there's, again, K-12 is a great option, those types of things. And now the money, the tax funds that is allocated to the kid now comes to you to go over and steward. So in Arizona, it was roughly about $10,000. In Delaware, it's $14,000. They don't have a plan that way. Maybe things change soon. But an education savings account can go over and leverage, and now you can put that money. Like maybe you get them into, K-12, and you start putting the money into childcare to go over and say, okay, I might be working a job at home and I need at least, 3-4 hours before grandma comes in or grandpa comes in or a friend or a neighbor or whoever it is. Whatever it is, that's what the ESA can go over and support as long as it's justified. And that ESA usually lets you access the entire cash. Now, check your local state rules for that particular thing. Things have gone over and changed. I'm not sure if COVID is taking this away, but an educational savings account, if your state has it and allows you to access it, would be exponential. What could you go over and do for $14,000 more a year? Maybe you come to find out that you could come home and actually do the homeschooling. Because again, we talked about it. The average second parent coming to work goes over and brings in maybe, $10 to $20, $15 to $20 an hour. You're going to take 40 to 60% plus and take it away. Why not come home with your kids if all possible and then increase your revenue $14,000 to support you and the things that you need to go over and do? Going from there, tactic number 8 is leverage the tax holiday. President Trump recently went over and signed 4 executive orders. And yes, there's a lot of chaos in that particular thing, but we need to go look for the good. The tax holiday is basically saying that as of, I think, September, if everything goes correct, basically, if you're paying your standard taxes, which 70% of Americans, including military, don't know how to do their taxes. They go do their W-9 2019, they write 0. And they go over, they don't claim any of their exemptions. So that means you're not bringing home the max amount of pay possible. You're banking on a tax return to go and do that. The tax holiday will go over and take those taxes that you've been getting taken out up to 30% and pauses it for those 4 months. But the thing is that it's going to be owed in the long run. That's the difference between a tax holiday and a tax break. A break lets it go. A holiday kind of goes over and just takes it off. And then it comes back on. Say we take Christmas off, but the next day is not a holiday anymore. So you want to leverage that. You might be bringing home an additional 200 to thousands of dollars going over in your checking account. So if you're the parent that's not on unemployment and whatnot, leverage that tax holiday, and maybe you go put that into an online program or a private school for that short season until this thing goes over and remediates. Some private schools online get really cheap. So if you're going to stick, there's still some private and Montessori schools that are still up and rolling. So maybe you can enroll your kid into that to leverage the tax holiday. Again, like from virtual school tactic number 1, your choice. Your choice. There's certain legal precautions and whatnot, but don't lock in saying this is the only way we can go over and do that. That's what stress goes over and does, is that when we lock up and we see no way out. Going from there, virtual school tactic number 9, and this one I'm going to be a little rough with this one, is structure your home now. The reason why I say that is most people go over and wait until things hit. We've been in COVID for a long time, and I'm not saying that you have done this or haven't done this, but for the people that are sitting around waiting for the school to go over and fix it, probably not going to go over and happen. So the thing is that you need to structure your home now. Start practicing now. Going over with your kids while they're in summer vacation. Start building them a structure and a schedule. We do 3 pockets. Our kids do amazingly well, but they still struggle. So our kids meet about 80% of what we go over and ask for. But we put that structure in. If we just totally let them go, like when we allow them to do binge Saturday, nothing happens. Nothing happens. From 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. when we do binge Saturday, we give them that day off and let them do what they want. They do nothing. So if you don't put a structure in front of them, they go over and thrive. Our structure is 8 o'clock PT, 9 o'clock, they do a lesson that's online through their school portal. 3 o'clock is a home lesson that my wife goes over and procures. That one's kind of hit or miss. And then they have their chores. So at least they start building in that structure. Then it starts building up their stamina at the same time, because they're going to be in this monitor for 7 hours a day. It's actually 5.5, but when you start the day, they're still going to have to get up. They're still going to have to brush their teeth. They're still going to have to shower and everything else. And if we don't start building parts of it now, it's a hell of a lot harder. That's why kids that usually go to summer camp or summer school or some type of camp, there's like some here in Delaware through churches and nonprofits, those kids usually do way better in school and test scores because of that. So unfortunately, our kids are going to be home, or they're going to be in a hybrid. Structure your home now to start practicing those things. Virtual school tactic number 10, to maybe if you have to go over and come home, find some side hustle income. If you're a veteran, military, first responder going over and listening to this, you can go to VirtForce. There's a lot of virtual jobs. You can go over and work for Uber. You can work for Lyft. You can work for those types of things. Yes, there's COVID risk, but they're doing a lot more food delivery and contactless, Postmates, those types of things. You can go over and do TaskRabbits. I've done a plethora of things. Craigslist, hit or miss. Filter well, know what you're reading, those types of things. Pennyhoarders.com. There's a lot of side hustle types jobs. You can do transcription. You can do Audible. So if you have a beautiful voice, you can go over and record for somebody. There's a lot of online opportunities nowadays. By 2025, 79 million Americans will be doing online work. Well, that's probably going to expedite because of COVID. So since now we're doing virtual school stuff and we don't know if it's going to last a month or the entire school year, I would recommend finding that side hustle income so you can go over and replace to get those breaks, maybe hire your nanny or your family to come in to go over and rotate through those things. Couple more things. Virtual school tactic number 11, budget time and money. This is going to be huge. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of time we throw our time away. If you ever going over and look at your phone, like your iPhone with the recent iOS, or maybe even the Droid has this. I'm not a Droid user, so I'm not 100% sure. They tell you there's a productivity and tell you how much screen time you go over and have. A lot of times we might be over using our time. We might be wasting a lot of our time. The average person in an 8-hour day only does 5.5 hours of productivity. So maybe as you're going over and trying to network with your boss, is that if you budget it more effectively, maybe you only have to work 5.5 hours in that particular regard. And if you are a GS employee, maybe you have Maxi Flex, and maybe you flex more on the weekends because maybe you got friends and family and those types of things of relief in there. So budget your time and your money. And you might go over and find out that you're working because you want to, but not because you need to. That's what figured out with me. My wife was making $23 an hour one season, and I was making about 10 to 15, depending on the IT job, and almost dying and stuff like that because of the crazy hours and shifts. And then the pay would fluctuate because depending on the job. And after a couple times, I'm like, I'm coming home. I'm like, I'm actually losing a lot of money because I'm paying these nannies X amount of dollars, and it was during summer and I think school. And then I went over, and then after about 6 to 8 weeks later, my wife's job went down from $23 to $13, and I got on military orders for $35 an hour, because I was a tech sergeant and everything else. So then we went over and we went back, and she's like, I'd like to come home. I said, you sure can. So we did that for another 4 to 6 months. So we pivoted back and forth. Sometimes it's been both of us. And, when we were getting out of homelessness last year, both of us working. Now it's like, my wife's like, I don't think I'm going to come back to work. I don't know if I'm going to go do a podcast. But if you budget your time and budget your money and you do it well and you start building those habits now, you might find out you have to do less with the money that you're earning, and then you can focus that time of helping your kids out in that particular thing. The last and most important thing, if you get nothing else and you're going over and just watching this on the last couple minutes, or you're coming in the first couple minutes and you're just trying to find that quick tactic to go over and grab, to go over and apply, virtual tactic number 12 is to network and connect. You might find out there is a lot more opportunities to deal with this stressor mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, to deal with this mess. This is one messy. And also, you might find out that as you're networking, connecting, you find out ways of support physically. Maybe there's like a teacher or something else that connects. They haven't thought about something, and as you're doing that fight, they change their mind because you're networked and connected with them, that they go over and rethink some strategies. They're starting to do that now. Or maybe you just go over and find out that there is job opportunities that were virtual or online, or maybe more flexible, or it's a gig type thing that you make more money. Like, for example, in the training world, a couple years back before we went to this virtual, the average trainer was making $600 to $800 a day working defense contracts and whatnot, which I did. That brought a lot of clout in my life in that particular regard, just that alone. So you find these opportunities, go over and network and connect. Find those like-minded groups and like-minded people, maybe even people that are not like-minded, and they might have a resource. But networking and connecting is going to be huge in this virtual school world. And we also need to go over and teach our kids to go over and do that too, because you might find out that there might be some way better opportunities than just going over and accepting what the status quo norm is. There was one more school tactic. Just as important as network and connect, and most important thing, it's actually more important than 12, so I kind of overemphasize. The most important thing is you are not alone. You're not alone. Me and my wife are fully in it with 4 kids, I'm working a full-time job, and I know you're fully in it, and we both can go and relate and both go over and connect. And I want you to remember that you are not alone. When you think you're in the struggle all by yourself, you're not alone. We're right here with you. It might be virtually that we go over and connect, but you're not alone. If you are struggling in this living room situation, we'd love to go over and connect with you. Go over and we'll give you a 20-minute free chat. That's for every military veteran and first responder that goes over and connects with us. If you wanted to take it to the next level, you can go over and go to patreon.com/thrive-not-survive. As low as $5 a month, you can become that marriage superhero, family superhero, leadership superhero when you're ready in that particular regard. Our most important thing for you to go over and to take out of this, outside of the tactic overall, is to take action with it, is our superhero challenge. Share your virtual school tactics. Have you thought any about this particular situation? Are you still absorbing? Have you thought of an idea that you say, it's just for me? Most times, it's not usually for you. That idea is not just for you, it's for you to share out. That's how things go over and change and transform. So put that in the comments so we all can go thrive in this pivot. Because yes, I came up with 13 ideas over the day to go over and create this podcast through now broadcasting through Roku and the Easy Way wall. And we're very much ecstatic that we're on 6 different locations. But the thing is that I'm only one man with one wife, with 4 kids, going over and serving you guys. And you guys are in different parts of this trial together with us. And we'd love to have you go over and share within the dialogue. So just do hashtag virtual school tactics, put that in the comments, and we'd love to go over and hear what tactic that you want to bring so we can go over and thrive and not just pass it along to us, we can pass it along to everybody else that's going over and listening. So that is pretty much it. I hope that you continue to go over and visit us each and every day this week in the living room to help you to go over and transform in the living room, especially in this COVID virtual world, fuzzy feeling season. We hope to go over and connect with you soon. You guys have a great day. And thank you again for Easy Way for opening up another stream profiles. So now we can stream to Roku and go over and stream to the Easy Way wall. Thank you. You all have a good day.